Spokane listens when business talks. Welcome to Business Talks, the region's only local business talk show with your host, Ryan McNeice. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well-Dressed Walrus. Now, let's get down to business with Business Talks.
Welcome to Business Talks. I'm Ryan McNeice. We're here in the studio with Well-Dressed Walrus, Curt Stockwell. Thank you for coming back. This is a second part. So far, we've done a first segment and a second part of the human side of marketing.
That's right.
And we plan to continue down this path because there are, as our listeners know, and as you've described in previous shows, several facets of the marketing process.
Right.
To kind of kick it off today, what would you say the single most effective or immediate impact advice that you'd give to somebody in this realm, talking about marketing?
Yeah. So if you're new to listening to the human side of marketing, listening to us talk about marketing, our whole goal is to find clarity in the words that you use to sell your product, or the words that you use to talk about your product. So we help businesses many different ways, from consulting to actually creating digital assets like a website, for example.
Right.
But the most immediate impact that one of the services that we offer is helping people clarify their one-liner or their elevator speech.
Right.
Yeah, and that's because what's great about that is we can have a consulting session, and you can literally walk out of that and use that that new asset in your marketing in the hallway, right outside the the place where we're talking.
And it might sound to somebody like, oh, okay, but what's that really going to do? But I think your point is well taken, because if you take a seminar of many areas and complexities of marketing, oftentimes I think what we all do struggle with is, what do you actually do?
Right.
Or what is that pitch that what's the problem that someone potentially needs solved?
That's it. That's the biggest thing is what is the problem that you solve? And we've said it before. We said it last time. The problem that we have right now in 2019 is it's a noisy marketplace. It's never been easier to do marketing. Literally, I see your smartphone sitting right there next to your coffee. That's a little computer, and you can put your message out to hundreds of thousands of people in seconds, and doing that marketing piece has never been easier before. But because it's easy, so many people are doing it,
right,
and the majority of people are doing it poorly. So thus, we have a marketplace that's very, very noisy when it comes to people's trying to sell their products. So if you can't help people quickly understand the problem that you're solving in a noisy marketplace, you're just going to be more of the noise.
Right, and they move on to something different. And that is true, and I think why this is such effective advice on your part is it's true if you're a plumber, it's true if you're an electrician, any trade, any professional service. There are all these respective people out there doing these different professions or trades, et cetera, but are they doing them well, or do people actually know what they do?
Right.
And I agree with you, to kind of be above the noise, if you will, is harder than one thinks.
Right, and it is extremely important that you nail this, whether you have a for-profit, non-for-profit, side hustle, whatever you're doing, whatever product you're selling. Sometimes when I'm in with groups of people talking about this kind of idea of clarifying your message, I'll ask the group or the room, how many of you in here are in sales? And it's kind of a trick question, because really everybody should raise their hand.
Right.
We're all trying to ultimately sell something. Even if you're the accountant in a large company, ultimately you want people to understand what your company does, right? And we're all in kind of a sales role, really. And specifically, this message is for people who want to be able to very quickly help people understand the problem that they solve, so they can get another opportunity and maybe even make a sale.
Right.
So you could call it a one-liner, you can call it an elevator speech, but really it's kind of, what do you say when people ask, what do you do?
Yeah, and are there specific steps that one would go through to try to ascertain what your quote-unquote one-liner should be?
Yeah. So
how do you arrive at that?
Right. So it's really kind of a definition of what we're doing today. It's a concise statement you can use to clearly explain what you offer. Now, this is different than a tagline. It's different than a mission statement, and it really outlines the problem that you help your customers solve in a relevant, simple, and repeatable way. And that's kind of that's the important thing, is the repeatable way. When I'm in a networking event, when I'm at a networking event, right, and I connect with somebody, or you meet somebody in an elevator. Obviously, the elevator pitch is kind of where that came from. Or you meet somebody, at just some random
coffee shop,
whatever. Right? You want to connect with them. You want them to be able to walk away and be able to repeat. Essentially,
what does that individual do?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. This is literally probably what happens to most people. I'm not totally sure. We talked for about 15 minutes,
I don't
but
understand it.
I still don't understand what he does.
Right.
And people listening right now are probably can look at themselves in the mirror and go, "That's me.
Yep.
I'm terrible at explaining what I do." And it's becoming more and more critical that you figure this out, because the marketplace is so noisy, and your competitor probably will figure this out, and it could be a problem.
Well, Curt, even in the practice of law, for me, I remember years ago in the early days of our practice, I remember talking to folks very similar to the analogy you just used, and having a conversation about when someone says, well, what type of lawyer are you?
Yes.
What type of Perry Mason are you?
Yeah, right.
And having a discussion, and then at the end of the discussion, them saying, oh, well, you don't do what my particular issue is. And like, oh, what is that? And they throw something out that was clearly in the wheelhouse of what you do. And you're like, how did I not communicate?
What you felt like you just talked about.
Did I not just say that I do that? But so your point is so well taken, that the clarity of what you think you are saying versus maybe what's being interpreted.
What's being heard, yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, so there's a few steps that we're going to go through today. And if you're listening, grab a pen, write these things down, because this is what you can do to literally, where's the camera? The camera's right there. This is what you can do to literally craft your own one-liner, and it could really revolutionize your company, especially if you're getting started and you really need to gain customers. You really need to help have people clearly understand what you do. Getting a great one-liner down, or an elevator speech, or what do you say when people ask, what do you do?
And at
it's
a minimum,
critically important.
At a minimum, at the coffee shop when the person walks away, they're going to be able to say to that next person, this is what they do.
Right. You want them to walk away and go, huh.
Does that work
that
for
person's
me?
In media, and I've talked to 10 people in media, or in lawyer. I've met lawyers before, and I've talked to multiple lawyers, but that guy seems different. He seems to understand. Well, we know that people say that about you.
I know when you said, anyway, that's funny.
Right. That guy's different.
So that's the body language part you got to be careful about.
Yeah, right. We want to make sure that they're walking away with clarity of what you do, not the fact that you're a weirdo.
Yeah, exactly.
But right. So when people ask, what do you do? What do you say? So we have a few steps that we can go through today. To help people clarify that.
Yeah.
So
let's
ready?
talk. Yeah.
Excited?
And are we going to use potentially Well-Dressed Walrus?
Yeah. So we're just going to kind of use what we do.
And I do want to clarify that for the listeners as we go through this analogy. You yourself, preaching, doing what you preach, you picked a name that signifies a lot of these principles right off the bat. Well-Dressed Walrus. People all of a sudden think, what is that? Which begs the question.
Right. So that's really important. We were literally having a conversation off camera or before we got started about, how do you name a company? Speaking with one of the employees here, and really it comes down to whatever your name is, you need to be able to quickly explain what you do. Right. So I mean, Amazon, Google, Twitter, Boeing. I mean, what is that?
Yeah.
Nobody knows what that is until you explain what you do. So that's why it's critical. Even those who feel like, well, it's very clear what I do in the name of my company. I still think you're not off the hook.
I would agree with that.
You've got, because
might be two, depending on which level.
Then you have to separate yourself from your competitors.
Yeah.
Right.
I do plumbing or I do.
Right. Or the problem that we solve and the way that we do it is, we're the only one in town that does it that way, And when you can really, when your message can hit somebody kind of at their heart or at their soul, or when they realize that you understand the problem that I have and you have a solution for it, that's really how you're going to stand out from your competitor.
And again, if I could use your company as an example, Well-Dressed Walrus. It actually begs the question, what do you do? And requires the one-liner.
Right.
But I think that is good psychology as well, because Well-Dressed Walrus, it brings you in. I've had people actually ask me when they've seen the name, do they do my wardrobe?
Yeah, right.
And I'm like, well, actually, no. They're a fantastic web design and media company. but there's where you go to that next level of what's the one-liner.
Right. So with a name like Well-Dressed Walrus, we better have a good explanation of what we do.
Absolutely.
So let's get into this.
How do you do it?
Should we get into it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it all is based around the power of story, telling a story. And again, we said it last time, we'll probably say it every single week that we talk about the human side of marketing. When you tell a story, you're not telling your story. You're telling how your product fits into your customer's story. That's a whole path that we're going to take. Actually, when we wrap up this episode, I want to kind of set up the next one where we're going to start going into each one of those elements. But it's the power of story. So start by stating the problem or pain that most of your clients face. Again, that's step number one. Start by stating the problem or pain that most of your clients face. So for us, just as an example, we would say the problem that most of our clients face is most businesses struggle to talk about and explain what they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you know what you do, but it's tough to tell you. What don't you already know? Fill in the blanks.
Right.
No, they don't.
Right. So when I meet somebody, they're like, "Well, what do you do?" I say, "You know how most businesses struggle to talk about and explain what they do?" And I've never had anybody that I've said that to that has gone, no, not really.
Yeah, no.
Most people, especially if you're in business, you're like, oh yeah.
Always.
We just had a marketing meeting last week, and the whole room of, experts, and we know our product down to the most minute detail, and we have a problem explaining what we do. So most people can raise their hand and go, yeah, that's
absolutely.
I totally
we struggled
that.
with that in the early days, and because we do civil litigation and do a broad base of that. Mm-hmm. So rather than getting into the specificity of it, but rather we solve problems. Mm-hmm. What's your legal problem? I actually went full circle and went away from the long, boring explanation because let's be honest, who wants to talk to a lawyer in the first place?
Right.
But this idea of we solve problems.
Yeah.
What issue you're dealing with? We might be able to help you out or refer you to somebody.
So for you, I think that a really simple way to say it is maybe we'll come up with your one-liner as we're on the show here, right?
This is,
ready?
I'm getting free advice.
Free advice.
Legal advice,
well, I'll send you a bill later.
Yeah.
I still have you just moved offices, so I need to get that new address.
Yeah, right. I'll get that to you.
So I would think that for you, when hiring a lawyer can be a stressful, daunting experience. Yeah, and so that's the problem.
Yeah.
Right. Or getting into a legal situation can be a stressful and daunting experience. And most people who've ever had to deal with anything legally would have got, whether it's like documentation or literally going to court, probably 100% of your clients would say, yeah, it's confusing and daunting. Even if I've done it 10, 15 times, it's still confusing and daunting. So, the solution, then that leads us into step two. So step two is talk about your solution to the problem you just stated.
And let's hold right there and come right back from a break and talk about that. I did want to clarify, though, your actual podcast is called
The Human
Side of Marketing.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to go more in depth on several of the points we talked about in our last episode, as well as this one and the future episodes, how would someone
wherever
find it best?
Wherever you get podcasts, if you have an iPhone, you can go to to iTunes. You can actually either type in Well-Dressed Walrus or The Human Side of Marketing.
Either one.
And if you are on an Android device, you can use Stitcher.
Okay.
Or on YouTube, we've got our Human Side of Marketing episodes on YouTube channel. Just type in Well-Dressed Walrus or WD Walrus or The Human Side of Marketing.
I definitely wanted to clarify and make sure that you had an opportunity to take some of the principles we talk about here today and go back to Curt's actual podcast, Human Side of Marketing. Take a short break, come right back with step two.
The economy is getting stronger. Banks are lending again, and interest rates are at historic lows. Now is a great time to buy your dream home. The caring and knowledgeable professionals at Homes for You have been helping people just like you for over 20 years. They take the time to listen to what you want and will help you find just the right home in Washington or Idaho. Real estate is what we do at Homes for You, 928-5782, or visit online at homes4uspokane.com.
Is your child having trouble coping with a personal disability, but don't know where to go? Consider our friends at Breakthrough Incorporated. Breakthrough takes great pride in mentoring their DDA clients who have intellectual disabilities and their BRS clients who have challenging behaviors toward the creation of safe, appropriate, ethically sound life goals. They integrate programs at school and home to enrich their lives. They work hard to make a positive difference in you and your family's lives. Breakthrough provides a highly structured, fully staffed residential setting in local neighborhoods, 6 in Spokane and 2 in the Tri-Cities. diagnosis affect people differently, so their service to each resident is unique, giving them the opportunity to grow and evolve. For more information on Breakthrough, visit their website at breakthroughincorporated.org.
I really like the shower.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Take your time.
Welcome back to the studio. We're here with Curt Stockwell, Well-Dressed Walrus, and we're talking about elements of the human side of marketing. This is our second episode. Did our first episode a couple weeks ago, and we hope there's some forthcoming episodes. But lots of the particulars of what we're talking about today can be found on Curt's podcast called The Human Side of Marketing under Well-Dressed Walrus. We talked about step one in creating a one-liner.
Right.
For your business. Step two, right before the break, if you could restate it and let's chat about it.
Yeah, so step two is talk about your solution to the problem you just stated.
Okay.
So for us, again, the problem that we stated is most businesses struggle to talk about and explain what they do. So the solution to that problem is we use a simple communication framework that helps businesses clarify their message.
Yep.
And so for you, we talked about the fact that the legal process can be daunting and confusing. Right, and so for the problem, the solution to the problem is what's the solution to that problem of it being daunting and overwhelming?
Yeah, that is why this is a good conversation, because I think that's a tough issue, not only for our businesses but others, is an intimidation, whether it be for the system or dealing with legal professionals. Let's be honest, lawyers have a reputation out there. So I think, you've heard it here. New information today on Spokane Talks.
Breaking news.
Yeah, breaking news. So I think the intimidation of, as you said, and the complexity of the process is something to break on through. I would say for us, it's an attempt at engaging authentically and sincerely with our listeners or clients or what have you, that we're not any different than any other profession, that we are wanting to engage and solve their problems, rather than having it appear that it's a daunting engagement.
Yeah, well, I mean, knowing your team, you and your team, I would say that you and your team, the solution to that problem is working with a team that will listen to you and take the time to understand your needs.
Hopefully. Interestingly, though, in terms of the processes you're talking about, I would say ours almost can only be done through the proof on the other end, meaning their actual interaction with us to say, oh, this is a little different, as we joked about. Oh, they're different.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's harder to maybe put that out there in a message, as you're indicating, up front, rather than maybe only get that through the actual experience after the fact.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, and in knowing actually having family who've worked with McNeice Wheeler, I know that the thing that comes out that I hear from everybody, even others that I've known that worked with McNeice Wheeler, is that interaction with your team is so genuine.
I hope so. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. So I think, that really, to me, is the problem that you guys solve, is you make that process less daunting and overwhelming because of who you guys are and the care that you give. I think that's your.
Well, I appreciate that, Curt. I think the challenge for us is that we have the empathy that our clients are coming to us most of the time in difficult scenarios.
That's the secret sauce of all marketing, right? This whole clarity thing that we're talking about and stating problems is if you genuinely have empathy. Where's the camera again? If you genuinely have empathy, you can quantify that by standing out in the marketplace and talking about it. And when
not just going through the motions.
Not just going through the motions, yeah. And so that really is your competitive advantage, is empathy for your customer's problem. But until they understand that you understand their problem, they might not listen. So that's why this process is so good to use a one-liner to open that conversation. This is the first opportunity you have to create a relationship. And most great marketing that is done out there is peer-to-peer. And
I would agree. Word of mouth.
Word of mouth, right. So when you have an opportunity to meet that person that is selling that widget or has that solution, whether it's a product or service, and they come off as, wow, I spent 5 minutes talking to them, and they seemed so much different than any plumber that I'd ever talked to, or any lawyer that I ever talked to.
Kind of that blink concept that Gladwell talks about, that you're immediately making an interpretation of that engagement.
Yeah, so you're not leading with, oh, we create this widget, and it's got these different specifications, yada, yada, yada. You're literally starting with, most people have a problem, and we have a solution.
Right.
Really, that's the basis of it.
And many individuals in those respective trades, you just threw out a plumber. There could be 20 plumbers in a row that fit the competency of, could get your job or your problem done.
Right.
But what are those next factors that is differentiating that particular plumber from the next 20? And there are plenty.
Right.
Just what are they?
Right. And so plumbing, for example, and we talked about this a little bit last time when we gave the example of a lawn care company. So let's go down the path of the plumber. So your plumbing company and your competitors and 5 more down the line, you can all do plumbing, right? You can all you can all put in toilets and put in sinks, and
you can check the boxes.
You can all check the boxes of the task being done. But really, the thing that you're selling is a solution to an external problem. The thing that customers want to purchase is a solution to an internal problem. The internal problem is my plumbing has an issue, and that's making my family's daily interaction with our plumbing a problem.
Right.
And that's creating more problems, and that's creating stress in the home.
Can you solve my problem?
Right. So if you can come into, as a plumber, let's say, come into a situation and relieve stress, you fixed a toilet.
Right.
But what you really did is you relieved the stress that's related
that
around
was the
fact.
actual problem.
That was the actual problem.
Yeah, or the one with the highest amount of intensity, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we start with stating a problem and we talk about the solution to the problem, then that leads us into the next thing. The third thing is finally ramp up the success and clearly explain. This is the third piece of it. Finally ramp up the success and clearly explain how your customer will feel after you solve their problem.
And that I think is exactly what you were hitting on, that whether it be the plumbing or electrical, or I'm going to turn the mirror back on Well-Dressed Walrus. I could tell you how, in terms of your services to McNeice Wheeler, and how that's the feeling that you have once you implement these projects and it all comes together. It is a pretty massive satisfaction of checking a lot of boxes, of gone from A to B and accomplished some of the psychology and purpose of the project. How do you feel, yourself and Andy, your partner in this business? How do you feel when a business comes to you, either through your podcast, through a seminar you put on, and you brought them through these respective tests, and they do leave and they have that one-liner and much more, but the one-liner is what we're talking about here today. How do you feel about bringing them through that process, then they have a voice for their business?
It makes me, I love it. I mean, literally, like, what gets me out of bed in the morning and gets me pumped about going into work is at the end of the day, most people want to help others.
I think that's true.
Most people who do well in business want to help others.
Totally agree.
We love the fact that we've helped you find clarity in your marketing, and whether it's through some consultation or whether it's through a digital asset like a website can be a very overwhelming thing for businesses. It's something that everybody knows that they need,
right? And
it's something that is, whether you like it or not, people can go find it and judge you.
Oh, totally.
Immediately.
Yep.
So many people.
And it's the content piece. I guarantee, and we've talked about this, when you tell individuals, hey, by the way, you got to get me content to fill that respective page. It's like.
Right. And so us being able to help them even clarify the words is a big piece of it. But the piece that I was just talking about is in regards to judging you.
Yes.
Is I've had many people say, oh, you do marketing and you build websites. Yeah, she's like, would say, this is our website address, but don't go look at it because it's super embarrassing.
Oh my gosh.
That's
not a good disclaimer.
Or don't judge me when you go look at our website. There's probably people listening out there who are putting their hand up going, yeah, I think every time I give my website address out, I cringe because people are, I'm
Yeah, and that's your business card. That's your
Yeah.
It's the headshot.
yeah, and
That's
it's what people expect. And when I say that judging piece is whether you like it or not, people are looking at that piece of your marketing and going, is this business professional? Can I trust them? And the first blush that we have is no longer walking into the your the front
bricks
of
and
your
mortar.
business, the bricks and mortar. It's your digital marketing.
That's a good point, Curt, because that's second.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, this day and age, you're doing this and you're looking that up, and that you're quantifying that judgmental process. That's happening first. Step 2 is I might come to your bricks and mortar if there is, in fact, a bricks and mortar.
So the reason why I brought up the fact that and wanted to talk about this one-liner and what do you say when people ask what do you do is before we can, because it takes a couple months at least to fix a digital asset like a website, right? But if we can first go, let's fix how you talk about your business. We can do that sitting down in a couple hours.
Yeah, let's solve that first.
Let's solve that first. Then you can be out there in a networking scenario, and maybe your website does suck, and maybe you're in the process of trying to fix it.
Right.
But in the meantime, you are very clearly explaining what you do and using this one-liner to do it. So that third piece, if we want to kind of get to that third piece, you're ramping up the success and clearly explaining how your customer will feel after you solve their problem. So the example for us is when you clarify your message, customers engage more, word starts to spread about your company, and your business grows. So that's the third piece of it.
Right.
And like for you guys, for example, I would say that, again, since we're giving out free advice here today,
Right, exactly.
to McNeice Wheeler.
Checks in the mail.
Right. I would say that for you, the success is at the end of this process, you'll know that you had a team on your side that had your best interest in mind to get the most desirable result.
Yep.
Now you can't guarantee anything, obviously, but it's really your customers or your clients are going through a journey, and the thing that you're doing with McNeice Wheeler is you're a guide through that journey. I can't guarantee you that at the end, for you, for example,
A particular outcome,
you can't
but-
guarantee a particular outcome. With my creating a digital asset like a website, I can pretty much guarantee what it's going to look like and how it's going to work. 99.9% sure, right?
Right.
Well, with you, you've got some,
There's
some
a lot of
things that you're
variables at play.
variables and unsure. Yeah, and I even think stating that as we can't guarantee the outcome, but I promise you that the journey will be, we're here for you throughout the journey, and you have a partner in this that really cares about you.
So for Well-Dressed Walrus, I know you. I know the amazing product and work and actually the people, which I find almost the most important, the people behind it that are driving the reputation, the personality of Well-Dressed Walrus. But what's your one-liner?
Our one-liner. So we're putting it all together. We're putting step 1, stating the problem, step 2, talking about the solution, step 3, ramping up the success. This is what we say. And I like to start it out with, how, because it's very, when people are like, well, what do you do? And I would say, how most businesses struggle to talk about what they do? We use a communication framework that helps people clarify their message. When you clarify your message, customers engage more, word starts to spread about your company, and your business grows.
I think it's perfect.
And
I think it's perfect.
And I haven't talked about building websites. I haven't talked about consulting. I haven't talked about creating email campaigns. I haven't talked about website hosting.
But what you're saying is because all of that's under the umbrella of the one-liner. Yes, you do the web hosting. Yes, you do the consulting. Yes, you do significant aspects of branding. But that's underneath. That's why I think people got to be so careful with the one-liner or with, as we were talking off camera, with the name of the business, the name being too limiting. It might say you do this when actually you do all of these things. So you got to be careful about that.
Right. And so the thing that's so great about creating a one-liner or the answer to what do you do and doing it in this way is it makes people go, oh, tell me more.
Yeah, well,
that's what you want.
Hopefully,
anytime you're talking to anybody,
or you get this, and
right?
Like, enough.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I've never said that to somebody and had somebody go, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know any business that doesn't struggle with their messaging. I either, oh man, my brother-in-law needs to talk to you.
Yeah,
his product is so great.
I know
does
somebody.
Such a terrible job of explaining it. And so that's what's great for us is it starts the next question of, oh really? How do you do that?
Yep.
Then you start to get into all of the nitty-gritty stuff.
It is critical. I think it's step 1 in either getting into business, rebranding a business, and the whole marketing idea. As we close here, give us maybe a quick foreshadow of episode 3, what we're going to talk about in our next opportunity to sit down.
We're going to talk about your customer. We're going to talk about the character in the story, the hero in the story. Right? We talked about the fact that story is so important, and the story needs to be told from the aspect of how does your product fit into your customer's story. So we're going to start to diagnose and really start to understand, help you understand who your customer is and how to connect to them and identify the problems that they have.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully our listeners are looking forward to it. I think Seth Godin had a comment in one of his recent books, This is Marketing, talking about this concept of, as a customer of, let's say I'm a customer of Patagonia or something like that people like me buy this.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go away from Patagonia. Starbucks, Barnes & Noble. His whole concept, Seth Godin's concept, was people like me interact with this company. Yep. So I think that's what you're touching on to a certain degree is what's my story in relation to that respective company.
Right.
But if you don't identify as the company who your customers are, you basically miss the boat.
Right. And another little teaser here, not everybody is your customer, right?
I like
that's
the way,
so critical to understand.
I like the way you're saying that, though, because to some people, like, what do you mean? People starting out in business, I want all the customers.
No, you don't.
And it's actually just not true.
That's not true.
Because it might not be a fit on one side or the other.
Right.
And you come through experience to realize that. We got lots to talk about in the upcoming episodes. Please join us next time. This was episode 2, talking to Curt Stockwell, Well-Dressed Walrus, talking about the human side of marketing. Please check out his podcast, but join us again, probably just a couple weeks out, and we'll talk about the customer, the character of that customer, and weaving the story with the lens towards who is the customer. Thanks for joining us.
Business Talks is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content. Ask a question, recommend a guest, and hear this program again online anytime at SpokaneTalksOnline.com. Business Talks is brought to you by our friends at STCU and Well-Dressed Walrus. Business Talks wishes you good business and a good day.